My mother blamed me for my father's abandonment. Since age 3 now she's homeless and demanding to move in. Our entire relationship changed. After I finally stood up for myself. Anna grew up as an only child with her mother after her father had left the family when she was just 3 years old. Her mother, Clara, never got over the loss and repeatedly blamed Anna for being the reason for the marriage's failure. "If it weren't for you, your father would have never left us," were words that Anna heard throughout her entire childhood. The constant accusations and her mother's emotional coldness shaped Anna's childhood. Instead of experiencing love and security, she lived in a household full of bitterness and unspoken reproaches. Clara worked as a nurse in shift work and was rarely home. When she was present, there was always a tense atmosphere. Anna tried everything to gain her mother's recognition. She was an excellent student, helped with housework, and always behaved exemplarily. But no matter what she did, it never seemed to be enough. Her mother responded to good grades with just a brief nod, and the comment that this was the bare minimum to be expected. The few times Anna asked about her father ended in tears and accusations from her mother. Thus, she learned early on to avoid this topic and suppress her own feelings. She developed an inner strength that carried her through this difficult time, but also a deep longing for genuine affection and acceptance. At 18, Anna had enough of the suffocating atmosphere at home. Thanks to her excellent grades, she received a scholarship to study economics in another city. When she told her mother about her study plans, she responded with icy coldness. "So you want to run away too, just like your father?" These words hit Anna deeply, but this time she stood up for herself. "I'm not running away, Mom. I just want to be able to live and breathe." It was the first time she had ever contradicted her mother. The following weeks were marked by silence and underlying tensions. Moving into the student apartment felt like liberation. For the first time, Anna could breathe freely, without constantly having to be on guard. She shared a small apartment with her fellow student Sarah, who quickly became her best friend. Sarah showed her how a normal, loving family functioned when she invited Anna to her home on weekends. Her mother's calls became less frequent, and when they came, they were short and cold. Clara criticized Anna's decisions, her choice of studies, and even her new hairstyle. But the physical distance helped Anna not to take this criticism so personally anymore. She began to shape her own life and make her own decisions. During this time, she also met Thomas, an architecture student who showed her that she was lovable, just as she was. With him, she could talk openly about her feelings, her fears, and hopes for the first time. He became her safe harbor in stormy times. After successfully completing her studies, Anna found a well-paying position at a consulting firm. Through hard work and discipline, she managed to buy her own small apartment. She was proud of her achievement, having accomplished everything through her own efforts. One day, her mother showed up unannounced at her door. Clara had lost her job as a nurse and could no longer afford her rent. "You're my daughter," she said. "You have to help. You're not responsible for your mother's happiness." After much consideration, Anna offered to let her mother stay temporarily on the condition that she would follow certain rules and actively look for new work. Clara moved in, and at first, everything seemed to go, but after just a few weeks, the old patterns began to emerge again. Clara criticized Anna's lifestyle, her relationship with Thomas, and her working hours. She secretly searched through Anna's documents and found bank statements. When she saw how much her daughter earned, she demanded financial support, not as a request, but as a mother's inherent right. The turning point came when Clara turned Thomas away at the door one evening, claiming Anna wasn't home even though she was working in her room. When Anna found out about this, she reached her breaking point. In an emotional conversation, she confronted her mother about everything she had done to her over the years. "You stole my child," Anna said through tears. "But I won't let you take my future too." After the confrontation, a heavy silence filled the apartment. Clara retreated to the guest room and refused any conversation for days. Anna felt relieved to have finally spoken her truth. Yet the old guilt continued to gnaw at her. During this time, Thomas was her greatest support. He encouraged her to stand firm and not allow herself to be pushed back into the role of the guilty child. Her friend Sarah also stood by her and helped her see the situation from a different perspective. One morning, Anna found a letter from her mother on the kitchen table. Clara wrote that she would be moving in with her sister. Between the lines were the usual accusations about how ungrateful Anna was and how she was abandoning her own mother. But this time, these words no longer triggered feelings of guilt. Anna began therapy to work through her past. There, she learned that her mother had projected her own unresolved issues onto her. She understood that she wasn't and had never been responsible for her mother's happiness or unhappiness. The therapy also helped her deepen her relationship with Thomas. She could now speak more openly about her feelings and no longer had to constantly fear being abandoned. Her work at the consulting firm flourished as she was no longer under constant emotional stress. During this time, Anna learned through her aunt that her father had passed away several years ago. This news hit her unexpectedly hard, although she had barely known him. She mourned not only for the father she never had, but also for the childhood that had been denied to her. A year later, Clara stood at Anna's door again. She looked aged and tired. Her sister had asked her to move out, and now she was homeless again. But this time, Anna was prepared. In a calm voice, she explained to her mother that while she would help her find an apartment and pay the first month's rent, living together was no longer an option. Clara's reaction was surprisingly different than before. For the first time in her life, she broke down in tears and admitted that she was in therapy. The months with her sister had opened her eyes to how much she had hurt her daughter. She didn't ask for forgiveness, but for the first time, she took responsibility for her actions. This development fundamentally changed their relationship. They began meeting once a month in a cafe, on neutral ground. The conversations were difficult and superficial at first, but became more honest over time. Anna got to know a new side of her mother, and Clara finally began to see her daughter as an independent person. Thomas proposed to Anna, and to her own surprise, she invited her mother to the wedding. Clara came, stayed in the background, and didn't interfere. At the end of the celebration, mother and daughter hugged for the first time in many years. It wasn't an overwhelming reconciliation, but the careful beginning of a new chapter. When Anna learned she was pregnant a year later, she felt no fear about making the same mistakes as her mother. She had learned that while you can't change the past, the future lies in your own hands. With Thomas by her side and knowledge of her own worth, she felt ready for this new challenge. The story of Anna and Clara shows that healing is possible, even if the path there may be long and difficult. Sometimes it takes years of separation and self-discovery before a new, healthier relationship can develop. Not all wounds heal completely, but they can scar over and make us stronger.